You are standing in Buda in the year 1245. The Mongols have just torn through Hungary, burned it, salted it, left half the kingdom dead or scattered. Your king, Béla IV, watched his army break apart at Mohi. He fled to the Adriatic coast with his family, a king with no country, waiting to see if the horde would follow him across the sea. It didn't. The Mongols withdrew as suddenly as they'd come. Béla returned to a kingdom of ash to rebuild it, and he brought a vow back with him. If God spared Hungary, his next child would belong to the church. Not a donation, not a gesture, an actual daughter handed over, body and future, in exchange for a nation's survival. That daughter is 3 years old. Her name is Margaret. She does not know yet that she is a payment. She is a princess of the Arpad line, grandniece of an emperor, niece of Saint Elizabeth of Hungary, daughter of a king still trying to claw his kingdom back from rubble. In any other circumstance, a girl like this is a diplomatic instrument, a marriage waiting to happen, an alliance not yet signed. Béla needs alliances. Bohemia, Poland, Austria, every neighboring throne is a piece on the board, and daughters are how the board gets played. Margaret is handed to the Dominican sisters at Veszprém before she can talk in full sentences. Details of her earliest years come primarily from a biography written by the nun Leah Roskei over 2 centuries later, and should be read as pious tradition rather than eyewitness record. But the political fact underneath the legend is solid. She was born owing a debt she never incurred, to a king who would spend the rest of his life trying to collect on her value, one way then another. By the time Margaret is 7, the convent has already shaped her more than the palace ever did. She has grown up inside the enclosure, alongside women who chose this life instead of being placed in it. And according to the tradition passed down by the Dominican sisters, when her father tries, for the first time, to arrange a marriage for her to a Polish duke, 7-year-old Margaret answers him directly. She tells her father that she would rather die than leave religious life to marry. Whether or not the exact words survive, something in that refusal is consistent with everything that follows. This is not a child drifting passively toward the convent because it's where she was left. By 7, she is already choosing it, and choosing it against her father's stated intentions, which is a different thing entirely. A king does not expect to be refused by a 7-year-old. Béla backs down. For now. At 12, she is moved from Veszprém to a purpose-built convent on an island in the Danube, a convent her own father commissioned, on land that will one day carry her name. She takes her vows there as a teenager, and this is where the pattern of her adult life begins. She refuses every privilege that comes with being a princess inside a convent of commoners. She takes on the ugliest labor, kitchen work, the sick ward, tasks the other sisters are spared out of deference to her rank. She insists on being nothing but a nun. Margaret is 18. She has taken solemn vows. By any normal reading of canon law and convent life, her path is settled. Then Ottokar II of Bohemia takes notice of her. Ottokar is not a minor suitor. He is one of the most formidable rulers in Central Europe, a king who will go on to control Bohemia, Austria, Styria, and Carinthia, a man whose ambitions will eventually put him on a collision course with the Habsburgs themselves. A marriage to Ottokar is not a romantic subplot. It is a Hungarian-Bohemian alliance of the first order, the kind of match that reshapes borders and outlives kings. Béla wants it. Badly enough that he does something extraordinary. He petitions Rome to have his own daughter's vows dispensed, to have the church itself release Margaret from her consecration so she can be married off. This is not a father gently hoping his daughter might reconsider. This is a king attempting to use the machinery of the church to override a vow the church itself received from her. Picture what this demand actually asks of Margaret. Walk back out of the enclosure she has lived inside since she was 3. Become, retroactively, the diplomatic instrument she was always meant to be. Trade a religious life she chose, repeatedly on the record since childhood, for a crown that was never about her at all. This is the center of the story. Slow down here. Margaret refuses, not quietly, decisively, enough that she goes further than simple refusal. She and a number of other royal women in her circle formally received the consecration of virgins, a rite that placed her vows beyond the reach of ordinary dispensation. It was a legal fortification, not just a personal preference. She was closing the door her father was trying to force open, and closing it in a way designed to make sure it could not be reopened. Consider the position this puts her in. She is refusing her own father, a king who has already lost a kingdom once to the Mongols and is fighting to rebuild Hungary's standing through exactly this kind of alliance. She is refusing a marriage that would have made her queen of one of the most powerful thrones in Europe, and she is doing it from inside an enclosure with no army, no independent wealth, no leverage except her own will and the church's recognition of her vows. Later tradition holds that her parents were so angered by her defiance that they did not attend her funeral years afterward. If true, it suggests this was not a disagreement that healed. It was a rupture that outlasted her. There is no cinematic confrontation scene preserved in the record, no verified transcript of the argument. What survives is the outcome. A princess who could have been a queen, choosing instead to make her convent cell permanent and unreachable. The refusal did not make Margaret's life easier. If anything, she seems to have answered the entire ordeal by turning further inward and harder against herself. The sources, again largely later hagiographic tradition rather than contemporary record, describe a woman who wore an iron girdle and hair shirts, who performed the convent's most repellent labor by choice, who nursed the sick and the dying with a devotion that other sisters found almost frightening in its intensity. Accounts describe her neglecting her own hygiene and health to such a degree that she reportedly unsettled the women around her. She gave away whatever gifts her royal family sent her, straight to the poor, funneled through the Dominican provincials so the alms reached people who actually needed them, not the convent itself. She interceded more than once for prisoners condemned to death, pressing authorities for clemency. None of this reads as a woman who won her fight and moved on peacefully. It reads as someone who had made an irreversible choice and then spent the rest of her life proving, to herself, to her father, to God, that the choice had been worth what it cost. By her final Lent, Margaret's health had been ground down by years of self-denial. On Holy Thursday, weakened and ill, she still washed the feet of 70 nuns and servants. On Good Friday, dying, she is said to have lamented that the day felt too short to complete her devotions. She died on January 18, 1270. She was 27. Word of her death moved fast. Within a year, her brother, now King Stephen V, who had fought his own father in a civil war, petitioned Rome to open her canonization process. 74 miracles were logged. 27 witnesses testified to cures, to a reported case of someone waking from death. It should have been a fast case. It wasn't. The 1270s process stalled. Another attempt in the 1640s failed. Another in the 1770s failed. It took until 1789 for Rome to even approve her public veneration, and until 1943, 673 years after her death, for Pope Pius XII to formally canonize her. One modern historian has suggested that lingering doubts about female visionaries and mystical testimony, more than any doubt about Margaret herself, may have been part of what kept the case unresolved for so long. The Church's slowness to recognize her is its own quiet commentary. Sanctity, even when locally undeniable, does not always move at the speed of bureaucracy, or at the speed of a father's forgiveness. Here is the tension this story leaves unresolved. Margaret was offered at 18 exactly what most people are taught to want: security, status, a throne beside one of the most powerful men in Europe, a father's approval. She said no to all of it, with a decisiveness rare in a person twice her age, and then spent the rest of her life proving, through austerity that bordered on self-destruction, that the no had been the right answer. Was it freedom, or was it a different kind of cage, one she built for herself out of iron and silence rather than marriage and diplomacy? The record does not resolve that question, and it would be dishonest to pretend it does. What is certain is only this: a girl who had never been asked what she wanted was asked once by a king, and she told him. That answer outlived her father, outlived Ottokar's kingdom, outlived 6 centuries of a church too slow to say her name out loud. She is still on that island in the river. It carries her name now, not her father's.